Wait, you mean to tell me they let her back on the show after last week's performance? Hello everyone, Jamie again, here with his Wrestle Gabbing. I've had made a sudden decision to change the name of the show and the podcast because me using the word that I was using was just contriving. It was conflicting so much, and I kept thinking to myself, if I ever wanted to turn this show into something like an actual, like, say I one day actually get enough subscribers to start branching out and create merchandise, Wrestle Talk is going to have my arse on a platter. So I've changed it to Wrestle Gabbing because I like the word gabbing. If you Google it, you'll learn that in the dictionary it is just talking endless amounts of time about something you're passionate about with kind of no censor and no kind of formality. It's just absolute bollocks, which is exactly what the show is. Anyways, I'm all caught up, glad to say. This will be my review of Smackdown and Raw for the WWE, and then coming Friday, I will be doing my review of AEW Dark and AEW Dynamite, so keep an ear out for that one. But let's just jump straight into it, because I've already wasted a minute of your time. Starting off with Smackdown, we got the New Day promo starting off with like Big E and Kofi Kingston celebrating their title win after Big E basically won it, and gotta say that I just love Big E, the way that he just emotes, and he absolutely had me laughing. I just kept thinking, this guy is funny as F. He's just so good. Great entertainment. But then weirdly, shortly after that, the music kicked in, and I actually had to think for a sec, are these new guys? Because it was the Lucha House Party, and I haven't seen them since they were doing that feud with Lars Sullivan, so it was really weird to suddenly remember that they still work for the WWE and just appeared out of nowhere. So it was really, I don't know, it was just different, and it was like, I guess I'm glad to see him back in the ring. They also put on a pretty good performance, which I'll get to in a sec, because it didn't last long, because they did soon get interrupted very quickly by then the Forgotten Sons, because we also had the Miz and Morrison. I'm not going to get too much into it, because Miz personally pisses me off. I can't stand him. I would much prefer to see Morrison on his own, but I'll talk about more of that in a length when we actually get to a segment that has a bit more in them. They kind of just walk past the Lucha House Party, because they're absolute pricks, basically, and was mouthing off, basically saying that because Morrison had originally won the belts, but then Miz had lost the belts to Big E, then there was a reason for a rematch for some reason. But then Lucha House Party kind of put their foot down and said, we've come out first, so we should get the challenge, and it kind of turned into like the Miz and Morrison versus Lucha House Party, which was more important. But then shortly after that, actually, before we even knew it, the Forgotten Sons, which I've been talking about for quite the last 2 weeks, about when they would finally debut, out of the hope that they would have like this amazing kind of debut and like amazing kind of coming to WWE, where hopefully WWE won't do their typical NXT thing and bury them. They would actually sell them over as a great tag team, because they were never really sold as a great tag team in NXT. They took a lot of bumps, never really had any good like championship reigns. They never really stood out, even though I thought they were good in the ring, and I'm just hoping all the best. It looked good because they came out and they looked strong and they dominated, so I was really excited. I was thinking to myself, like, finally we're going to get these guys the push that they do deserve, because they're all fantastic. You can tell they've worked really hard to get to where they are. They haven't been given the world on a platter. Just hoping for the best, and I hope they don't do any stupid storylines to like ruin them like WWE like to do. Moving on from that, we then got Drew Gulak versus King Corbin. As much as I don't like King Corbin, he has got some good ring work. It was fine throughout it. I kept thinking to myself, like, yeah, this is good. It's the qualifying match to get into the Money in the Bank ladder match. Kind of didn't, like, for a sec know who was going to win, because I thought, like, there was a brief moment where it almost looked like Drew Gulak was going to go over, but then King Corbin was coming back. But there was one gripe I had about it, and it wasn't actually with either Drew Gulak or King Corbin. It was actually the commentary in the match, because the commentary in the match went out of its way to remind us that Corbin has unsuccessfully cashed in the Money in the Bank briefcase in the past, that he's won it, and he did that really terrible cash in with John Cena, I believe, where he completely failed, and it was embarrassing for him. For them to bring that up, considering the results at the end of this match with, like, spoiler alert, King Corbin wins, now, like, he's thinking about it, is why is this guy in the Money in the Bank ladder match when he can't even cash the briefcase in at the right opportunity? He's an absolute idiot. And that's how the commentary made me feel about him. So that was, like, not good on them. No brownie points for them. I felt it was really silly bringing it up. And I was like, why are you doing this? Why are you burying your own, like, guy? Because considering that the commentary booth always seems quite supportive of Corbin, I don't know why they would do that. Straight after that, I will talk about one thing at the end as well, because there was another thing that I forgot to mention. I've just noticed it in the bottom of my notes, where Nakamura and Cesaro decided to just interrupt the whole match. Oh, there's my child. And they decided to get involved for no apparent reason. I had no idea why they did that. I thought they were part of Sami Zayn's group, but Sami Zayn wasn't on tonight, even though he's holding a title, so he should really be doing something, but apparently not. So now they've just decided to go back to Nakamura and that being his lackeys. I get that it's hard times and everything, so there's not much they can do about it, and as much as I would love to go on a whole rant about terrible booking and griping on it, there's not much I can really dig into it, because I have to be forgiving during these hard times. Anyways, I'm not going to trade too much from that. Basically, straight after that, we then did get, what is it? Sheamus, that was it, Sheamus. I completely forgot his name for a sec. Sheamus decided to come out of nowhere and just squash another bug on TV, like squash another unknown bug that I knew nothing about. I do apologise for the background. My child wants a drink. But yeah, he just squashed another bug. There wasn't much to tell about it. He's still doing this angry thing and kind of just looking angry and just doing his typical gurring and being a bit weird, really, not selling that much. Sorry, this is being interrupted a lot. But anyways, sorry about that brief break. It's not easy when we're all in isolation and things are going on. I'm sure you can understand. We then got Miz and Morrison versus Lucha House Party, where I almost went in 100% thinking that Miz and Morrison was going to come out of this with the win. Turns out not. Turns out Lucha House Party got the win, which I was really surprised at. It was kind of a good surprise in some ways, because I always enjoy their kind of work back in the day before they just became Lars Sullivan's punching bags. But like I was saying earlier, I don't know what it is about The Miz that really gets under my skin and really gripes me in such a way that annoys me to look at him. I just think that there's something about him, he's so childish. I get that he's supposed to be a heel, so a lot of people will say, I don't understand why you're getting upset, because he's doing, what you're supposed to be doing, which is getting heat, getting under the skin and annoying you. And he was doing that, but overall, I was just like, you're an arse. Simple as. I do truly believe that John Morrison, would be much better as a single. He looks so good in the ring. His move is so good. He's the way he holds himself and the way he comes out is so much better than The Miz. I really felt like if they had trained this guy properly, he could have been the next AJ Styles, when AJ Styles eventually wants to hand in the towel, which is pretty soon from what he's saying and the way he feels really down right now with the drop of Luke Gallows and all that. I just feel like they could have booked him so much better with his return, but instead they've put him back in this stupid tag team with The Miz, and The Miz just tends to always bury his tag team partners a bit like he did with Shane McMahon. But like I said, happy to see Lucha steal the win. This was then followed by Sasha Banks versus Lacey Evans. Glad to see that Sasha was fighting smart for once. She was going after Lacey Evans' hand, trying to injure it as much as possible, because she knows that Lacey Evans' finisher is the woman's right. So it was the whole strategy of, if I break your hand, you're not going to be able to deliver the woman's right. Unfortunately, that did come back to basically bite her in the butt, because it didn't work out. She still managed to deliver the woman's right and still get the knockout and even get the win. It was good to see as well at one point that Lacey Evans clearly cut her mouth or busted some part of her mouth, because there was like quite a lot of blood at one point, and I was glad to see that she wasn't hiding it. She was selling it, trying to get that kind of almost sympathy on her being the babyface, which was good. Overall, when I look back at it and I look at my notes and that, I actually have put down that this, like, in my personal opinion, was Lacey's best match so far this year, so that was all good to hear. Shortly after this, we then also got the Sasha and Bayley kind of feud kind of progression, and it seems like it's getting closer and closer, because basically the finish with the women's right and that did get involved because of Bayley's interference. It kind of ended up backfiring on Sasha Banks, and Sasha Banks felt like, you know, that Bayley had cost her the match. And then shortly after that, Bayley got knocked out by Shayna Baszler. Shayna Baszler just came out of nowhere and whacked her and knocked her out, and I believe Sasha just stared at her, kind of did like a little nod and just walked off and left her so-called bestie lying on the floor completely unconscious. So it can only be a matter of weeks, I guess, to that. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully they won't screw it up like they have done so many times before. Straight after that, we then got a women's tag match. There seemed to be like a lot of like just layering of like women's wrestling on here. Unfortunately, this match was boring as anything. I couldn't be interested. I barely paid attention to it. I wish Carmella could sell a bit better. She was in this match and she just wasn't selling like a lot of her moves, and she had a few hiccups that just looked really bad. She used to be much more like, I don't know, composed, and used to hold herself in the ring a bit better, but I don't know if that's because they've kind of been holding her back for a while. She hasn't been on TV for a while, so I don't know if it's that kind of jittery she got. I've also noticed with the fact of having Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross as the tag team champions and then being babyfaces, I started thinking to myself, and I've just realised how many babyfaces are holding titles right now, with the likes of, you know, Drew McIntyre having the belt, Braun Strowman having the belt. They're both babyfaces. Tag team champions, you know, right now we got the New Day, which are babyfaces. You got Nikki Cross and Alexa Bliss that are babyface. It just seems like there's a lot of babyface. The only person who's actually a heel right now is like Sami Zayn and Andrade, and they're holding what a lot of people call mid-card titles. They're not mainly featured, so I feel like they need to, WWE could do with some correction. I don't know if that's going to come in Money in the Bank with the whole kind of Seth Rollins coming into the picture, and I honestly don't know. It seems like WWE are always good at booking themselves in a corner where you can't really afford the babyface to lose, but at the same time you can't afford for the show just to be all one-sided, because otherwise it just becomes really contrived and the storylines become very boring very quickly. After this, I did find that we then had the Triple H kind of like celebration for like 25 years. A lot of good like moments in there. There were highlights shown throughout the night that really showed just like how much change and experience he's put in, and so many famous moments he's had. I just find it was a real shame that there was no crowd there to cheer Triple H, and the fact that he couldn't really have live guests. They all had to be done over like FaceTime, and it was a shame. It would have been so nice to see like Ric Flair and that in the ring, giving him like a hug and, you know, wishing him all the best and everything. It just would have been more contrived. And the fact that even like his own stepdad had to like, Vince McMahon had to stand at the top of a ramp talking down to him and Shawn Michaels, because obviously they couldn't have all three of them like huddled closely. So it did feel a bit lackluster in that respect, but still well done to him. He's worked hard. He's had some great matches. I did like the fact that Shawn Michaels pointed out his amazing loss record at WrestleMania and the fact that he just doesn't seem to ever get a decent win. But overall, it was good. I haven't put many other notes down other than that, because I didn't want to get too much into it, because I've also got to cover Raw, and we're already coming up to like 15 minutes. And I want to keep this video short, because the shorts seem to go better with the listeners. So we'll move straight on to Raw. Raw straight away started with MVP. He brought down his guests in the form of like Rey Mysterio, Aleister Black, and Apollo Crews. He was actually quite funny. There was one bit that actually made me laugh quite hard, where he was talking to Aleister Black when he was down at the ring, and he was going on about, you know, like Aleister Black's contrivery, and he kind of just said like, oh, you just sit down there and please don't break anything. And It wasn't like said exactly like that, but it was said kind of like along those lines, and it was quite funny, like the facial expressions and the looks from both of them, and the fact Aleister Black was giving him that kind of questionable dog look where like they turn their head to like one side and look at you as if to say what. It was really good. Overall, this then got followed because they were kind of talking about themselves, and then eventually they got interrupted with Andrade, Angel Garza, and Austin Theory all coming out and getting like involved, and like basically it was obvious from the start when I saw 3 people in the ring, and then you have them 3 come out. It was clear what was leading up to, which was a 6-man like kind of tag match. Overall, it was really good actually though. It was a good variety because it was all different. You had Rey Mysterio, who likes, he does all the kind of high flying, likes doing the hurricanranas, but then you had Alistair, who's a striker, deals mostly in kicks and knee blows and elbow strikes. Then you had Apollo that has a bit of like strength to him, so he was doing a few kind of like press moves and stuff like that, but also delivering some powerful splashes. It was really good because you got that nice bit of variety. It was something different. It really stood out. It was good booking on WWE's hand for like that sake. This was then like shortly followed by the fact that Andrade, Garza, and Austin really could have done with a win in this match. They sadly lost. The reason I say they could have done with a win in the match is the fact that they have been a faction for a while. They've been a trio for a while. They've had quite a few matches and spent quite a lot of time together. And the fact that they were beaten by 3 kind of people that have never worked as a team before and kind of didn't have the same chemistry that they should have, it did make them come across a bit weak and a bit like of failures really, because I've never understood the fact that we do this where we just put like a load of main stars together as like this kind of made up team, and they just immediately have chemistry and are able to push past these tag teams that have been working forever on their hard work and everything. And Shane, please leave the mic alone. And it was a good match. It was just generally good. I'm now repeating myself. Sorry for that. Straight after this, we then got what I thought was going to be Shayna Baszler, Asuka, and Nia, which just straight away I was like, oh god, considering what happened last week, Nia Jax, I was like so worried. There were ladders all around the ring, and surely enough they started doing spots where Nia Jax was throwing people. There was one spot where she grabbed Asuka and she like threw her to the ground, and it looked like she accidentally like bashed her head when she didn't quite catch herself because Nia threw her down a bit too hard. It was already one of those where I just kept thinking to myself, why have you let Nia come back out here after last week? I felt like someone should have took her back, not let her appear this week, and talk to her and just show her how to actually control her strength and do a move properly without hurting people, because it just felt so dangerous. And watching her, you felt really nervous. Like, I get that they might be leading to a spot where the idea is she is dangerous. All the best to her if they are going to go to that spot, but personally it made me too worried for the safety of the other talents and stuff, and I was glad that this was over quickly. Even though it didn't really seem to end up being a match, it kind of just ended up being this contrived random bit of whacking around with Nia Jax standing tall near the end, which once again Shayna Baszler not getting over, which is just ridiculous. Basically wasn't even a match. That's how silly it was. After this, it was Bobby Lashley versus like some random guy, and it was just a squash match. So I don't really understand with the whole fact that last week Bobby was messing about in the gym. Now he's having a random squash match. It just seems like they haven't got anything for Bobby and Lana right now. As you know, with Rusev getting dropped as well was a big deal, because I know that affected the storyline quite a bit. So it just makes you wonder what they're going to do with these guys. I can soon see us just not seeing Bobby Lashley in the ring for quite some time, because knowing the writing team and the creative, they'll just run out of ideas for him. That's pretty much it. I feel sorry for Bobby Lashley. He was absolutely fantastic. He did a brilliant job back in the day when he was like in TNA and stuff like that. It's a shame to see him now becoming like a bit of a background character in a big show like this, where he could have been one of the main superstars. Then Jinder Mahal's back. That was a big deal. I know that it had been already reported on Facebook and Twitter, like that Jinder Mahal was coming back and he was going to debut last night and everything. So straight away when I saw him, I was like, oh, it's good to see him. The guy that, you know, was WWE champion and literally didn't get over in the slightest. And surely enough, he just squashed a guy. There's big talks about him replacing someone in the Money in the Bank match, which I'll get to in a sec, because after this we then had Apollo and Andrade, which were working double night shifts by the looks of it, because even when they were coming out, I was thinking they just had this 6-man tag match, even though it wasn't like a super long one. It was still a pretty hefty match, and there was still some good bumps and stuff. So for them to come out and then do a match for the title, I was very impressed. I was like, fair play to these guys, really showing off their cardiac, whatever that vascularity or whatever, can't say it, dyslexia, damn you. Overall, it was good, but unfortunately there were too many spots where Apollo was doing high risk maneuvers, and he was always landing a bit funny. And surely enough, it did get reported after this that Apollo has injured. He's like busted his knee. They haven't reported exactly how he's done it or like what spot exactly did it, but they did show you highlights of him landing, and his knee was always tweaking in each kind of dodgy landing of his moonsaults or like dives. So it's most likely, from what I'm hearing from the rumours, that Jinder Mahal will be replacing Apollo in the ladder match, which is a shame, because I did just praise that 6-man tag match earlier, saying that, you know, that I liked him, and I was, you know, he's always kind of missed out on pushes, and once again he's missed out again because of an injury, which I believe has happened to him in the past, and you don't want to be known as that guy who becomes injury prone. I know some people survived with that kind of rumour, like Batista and that, because Batista was very injury prone, but he still ended up becoming a main star because he became very good friends with like Triple H and joined like Evolution and stuff. This was then followed by another like cut of MVP, who seems to be going... Oh, no. Before that, it was the Ricochet and Cedric Alexander match, where they just seemed to really have their mojo down and sorted. They looked really smooth in the ring. Their tag team work is getting so much better. They even got a hot tag, I believe, at one point, which was fantastic. Just overall, absolutely brilliant. Really entertaining. I look forward to seeing more and more of their matches every week now. It's become actually a bit of a highlight for me now, watching Raw, to see them, because I feel like they are one of the smartest decisions WWE have made so far this year, and trust me, they have not made many smart decisions. But yeah, basically they won their match fairly quickly. It was against some nobodies once again, and MVP showed up on the monitor, and he introduced a new tag team, and it seems like he's going to be like the manager. So it was interesting that MVP is now going for like this manager role, because I think the guy probably just looked at himself and realised that he still isn't that great in the ring. He's never going to get over with anyone. He's never going to get like a main title shot. And he can talk, like I said earlier, he hosts that show with himself and that, and the guy has got the gift of the gab. So we'll see how it goes. I haven't really seen him in a manager angle before, but I believe some people have. He's done it in the past. So we'll see how it goes, and I'll see what I think of it in the coming weeks. But then after this, we then got Jerry the King Ruler coming out, and this just didn't make any sense to me. This really made no bloody sense to me, because I'm thinking Jerry is an old, you know, semi-retired man, and he shouldn't be out during this time where people like him are susceptible to this horrible disease that's around. And I just kept thinking to myself, like, why has WWE let this man fly out here and travel here? Because surely he would have had to go through public places or semi-public places to get here, already putting his life at risk, and no amount of a fat check is going to, like, you know, make that any better. It just felt absolutely stupid. I feel like they shouldn't have done it. So I'm not going to go into what he was actually there to do that much. He was just there to introduce like the signing of Drew and Seth. Seth was dressed as some kind of Michael Jackson tribute act again, because he was wearing a tuxedo, but he kept the one glove on for some reason. I didn't really get it. But once he got down to the ring and Drew got down to the ring and they started talking, I was really impressed by the fact that Seth really used his head. It sounded like it wasn't very scripted. He actually used quite a realistic angle, going on about the fact of how his reign as Universal Champion happened, how the crowd soon turned on him when The Fiend became a thing, and the fact that he started getting booed as the champion, and he started going on about, you know, how he said that anyone kind of beats Brock Lesnar gets cursed with this kind of unpopularity, and he wanted to save Drew McIntyre because he likes Drew McIntyre, and basically he's like, I'm willing to take the burden on again. And basically Drew just replied with the classic babyface kind of badass line of just, shut up and stay out of my way. And it was, just typical kind of stuff. Remind me very much. It was kind of like, Austin 316, the way it was just kind of like the classic, just shut your mouth, and just basically went on the offensive. Surely enough, this led to Drew McIntyre eventually getting hot, got angry enough that he slammed Seth Rollins into like the desk and started beating him up, and then Buddy Murphy got involved, and there was this brief spot that I never understood where Drew McIntyre was in the corner, like semi-down, but like you could clearly see that he wasn't like knocked out or anything. He was just in the corner, kind of like exhausted, and Buddy Murphy and Seth are looking at each other, and they randomly go for a hug, turning their backs on the guy. Like Seth could clearly see, like, well, no, it was Buddy that could see. Seth had his back, but surely enough, Buddy, or I'm not quite sure in this spot, but basically it looked like Seth pushed Buddy in the way. But now that I think about it, because Buddy Murphy would have been able to see the Claymore kick coming, he probably pushed Seth away. I will have to rewatch that and double check. But it just felt like one of those stupid moments, classic kind of distraction moments where I was just like, why are you doing this? But overall, it was good. Drew ended the night looking strong again for a second week in a row, which is super to hear. I'm glad to see it, because got to support the Brits. And just overall, it was a good night. Now, I've just realised I didn't review Smackdown like fully. I didn't give it a score at the end. Overall, Smackdown was good. I'm not going to like say it was all bad. It just had a few bad spots, and it just wasn't very interesting. They failed to draw any kind of like major matches that really got me into it. So I'd give it like a 4 out of 10, just for the fact that it didn't have anything that really contrived out of me. I'm more than happy to give it that kind of score. It isn't quite up there with like the 5 or the 6s or even the 7 I gave AEW last week. But, it was still a good night. I'm not going to say it was all bad. It was just there was a few moments, like I said. I was glad to see the Forgotten Sons. Looking forward to that. I will give Raw a bit more of a fair shout, other than the fact that I didn't understand why they brought Nia Jax back, considering everything that's going on and how dangerous she is. Overall, it was good. It was a good end as well, of the champion looking strong. That's how you should always end a night. Just overall good. I enjoyed seeing the 6-man tag match. I always enjoy seeing Andrade's matches. It was shame about Apollo Crews getting injured. Don't really care for Jinder Mahal. So, in my head, I want to give it a semi-good score. So let's give it a 5 out of 10. Good and bad. It was kind of like in the middle. I have to score on a higher grade, because there's good, and then there's really good, and then there's just absolute perfection, which to me is a 10. In order to get a 10, you would have to have every element. You'd need the switch and bait, you'd need the heel work, you'd need the big main event that draws the crowd, you need stipulations, you need decent storytelling. You'd need all that to get to even near a 10 with me. So you got to understand that this isn't me just being a douche and like dragging it down, giving it bad scores. I do think both very highly about all the shows that I review. I'm not saying that wrestling is that bad right now. It's in a pretty good state considering how bad like the rest of the world is right now, and I'm impressed with what they're able to do with no crowd, and the fact that they're still producing content for us loyal fans, which I do really appreciate. But that's all. That is my 2 shows review. I will talk to you again on Friday to review AEW Dark and AEW Dynamite. We'll see what goes down, and I will review it and let you know my thoughts. Feel free to give this video a like. Really appreciate it if you gave it a share and told your friends about it, because then that way more people get exposed, more listeners come in, and hopefully we can start getting some feedback. I'd love to do like a question and answer section somewhere in the middle of the week. But overall, that's it. Obviously don't forget to subscribe and hit that subscription bell if you want to be updated every time a new podcast comes out, because you never know when I'm going to do something else. But yes, wherever you are, have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or even a good night, if that's what you're doing. And I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.